could have given up, but you didn't. You could have stopped believing, but you didn't. You could have kept living their expectations, but you decided to make this life your own. And in turn, you're here. Hello everyone, today we're meeting Sophie Deslauriers. She is a speaker, a love and business mentor. Hello Sophie, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. So let's start a conversation by diving into your journey of becoming the person you are today. What led you to discover your true passion in life? How did it start for you?
Well, my true passion, I would say, is human performance. I really have a deep desire to support people to perform at their peak potential. I was a naturally born salesperson when I was younger. My first sales job was selling Cantel phones, and it was an inbound call center. And I was just naturally good at asking for the sale, which meant I was naturally good at hitting my goals. And I married that up with coaching. I took several different coaching degrees, and then I went out and trained sales teams and sales leaders in leadership, coaching, and communication skills. And um, it was my complete focus for 20 years, to be honest with you. And then, unfortunately, I burnt out when I was about 37 years old. Working in the corporate world had its impact on me. And then from there on my journey, I started to handle some personal issues. But to answer your primary question, my deep passion was human performance. I grew up from very humble beginnings. And early in life, I had the thought process that education was going to be my way out of, humble beginnings. And I started developing and learning everything I could in and around sales and coaching. And that's how that came to be.
Wow, yes. And you discovered for yourself that human performance is something you want to dive into in more depth and understanding of how it is that you can bring the best out of other people as well. And I know you are mentoring men and women, but I think the focus mostly on women as
Yes.
a love and business mentor. If you can just elaborate more on the work that you do and how you can help them to really find their own true voice and feel empowered.
Um, Well, I worked in the corporate world, specifically training leaders in the sales vertical of an organization and how to be more coach-like in their leadership so that they could get the best out of their people. And then I worked with the sales teams and I trained them in the process of how to have a consultative sales meeting and then the specific communication skills they would need to open the sales call, to close the sales call. And I also taught them on presentations. And I was really good at it because I naturally believe in people's potential, and I was really deeply, authentically interested in seeing them break through whatever was limiting them, whatever fears that they had. A lot of people have fears around public speaking, or sales in and of itself is something that can be scary for people. And then when I got burnt out at the age of 37, I started to focus on my personal life. I was married at the time for 18 years. My ex-husband and I decided to get a divorce. We consciously uncoupled. During that time, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I had repartnered and I refused treatment to get pregnant. And then I found out I was pregnant a week after the pandemic hit. And so I went through a significant amount of heartbreak. I also had to walk away from a thriving business that I had built in my marriage, because that's just the way it landed with the divorce. And when my new partner and I decided to have a baby, we were lucky. We were blessed with a baby boy 8 months after my lumpectomy. And I really didn't think I was necessarily going to go back to work. But at the age of 2, he'd been in daycare already for a few months. And I started to just think about how much extra time I had on my hand. What did I really want to do? And I thought, if I'm going to go back to work, I really want to support women. I want to support an entrepreneurial businesswoman to grow her business and to have the love life that she wants. So the work I focus on now is about helping her have the leadership and communication sales skills that she and her team need for her business, and also to help her heal from her past breakups, whatever that might look like for her, and to attract her soulmate love. Because I have this new fire inside of me to support and enable and empower women to have both. And too many of us are compromising one for the other. And with the shift in gender roles, you know, it's not 50 years ago, us women don't need to be married for financial purposes anymore. We can become financially independent. And sometimes that is a conflict with the way our relationships have looked. And so I really want to support women in having both, because I think when a woman has both, that's where it's like magic for her.
Right. And yeah, like you mentioned, there is some kind of stereotype that you supposed to either focus on one or another, or if you want to have both, then, you know, you'll be very overwhelmed or stressed, you know, it's hard to handle. So I think it's just another perspective that you are providing women with support and experience that you had in your life, and for them to realize that it's not that hard and there is a way. And a lot of women need that, and to really like feel this empowerment and to step into their own power and find themselves in order to become this happy version of who they can be. Because especially like right now, I feel like there's always some kind of stress, anxiety going on, and we cannot really like find, I don't know, time, or we don't prioritize time enough for ourselves to relax, to unwind, and to give ourselves anything that we need to really like feel recharged, you know. And what do you think will help people to become mindful of how they feel, what they thinking about? Because it's very important to look into the words that you talking to yourself, don't you think?
Yeah, so what you're talking about is self-talk. Like, what is the things that we're saying to yourself on a consistent and regular basis? And, you know, I'll just use a relationship, for example. You know, I was married for 18 years, and some of the unhelpful self-talk, the damaging self-talk that kept me in a situation that I was unhappy for too long is like no one's ever going to love me the way that I'm loved now. It's my responsibility to put the needs of the relationship and the family first, which is a conditioned thought. It's not necessarily something that I thought. I'm too old. You know, like society did a really good job at conditioning me to think that I was maybe too old to have a baby at that time. And I really think it's important for women to really recognize what are the limiting beliefs that are stopping them, what is their unhelpful self-talk, and to really identify whether or not that's their thought or that's something that they've been conditioned to think from their parents or their school or their governments or their culture or their religion, whatever that is for them. And really just take the time to be like, okay, what is it that I need, I want, what is it that I desire, what do I truly think, and is what I'm doing in alignment with that, and is that going to get me the results I want? Or am I being stopped because of something I don't even really think? No, so I think it's really important. And I do a lot of work with women, helping them transition from being stuck in terms of what a gender role could where a gender role could keep a woman stuck, and helping her create a new identity for herself, you know, and helping her reinvent herself. And when she reinvents herself, she steps into a new version of herself, and then she's able to attract a completely different partner, which then may be a better fit for who she is and where she's at now with her business. And so she doesn't have to have one or the other. She can have both. It's about finding the right match for that.
Yeah, and also you mentioned the attraction that happens for the partner. So a lot of times we find ourselves being in toxic relationship,
Mm,
and we don't understand that actually we're the one in a way attracting that kind of partner, even unconsciously. Of course, we don't want to be in toxic relationship, but how is it that it's happening with us even knowing that? You know, like a lot of times we need to somebody to like give us another perspective of what is it that's going on in our mind that keeps us in that place, that keeps us in a place where we always kind of like meet the same type of people, right? So we always find some kind of pattern in the same type of partner that comes into our life. but something has to change in order for that pattern to change. What is it that could bring the awareness of, you know, on the type of partner that we're attracting, and how can we break that pattern?
Well, that's doing the deeper inner work. So I feel like if a woman is continually attracting the same type of partner, she has similar thoughts in her mind. She hasn't really changed her perspective on what her partner is supposed to bring to her life. And oftentimes we do what's familiar because it's what we know. And so another man's going to come in, or another woman, depending on your orientation, and that new partner could feel similar to the old partner, which makes things comfortable. And so we fall into like a default way of attracting a partner. Whereas versus if you do some work or in a work around yourself, and you start to shift your mindset, and you start to shift your identity, and you start to shift um, how you regulate your own emotions and how you show up as a woman, you're going to start to bring a completely different type of person into your world, because your energy is going to have shifted. Your mind's going to shift. Your thoughts are going to shift. The way you speak is going to shift. The way you speak to yourself is going to shift. How you handle being triggered and how you handle your wounds is all that's going to shift. And so it creates space for somebody completely different to come in, that somebody who's going to match the newer version of you.
Yeah, definitely. And that space, we need to, I think it's after the breakup, it's very important to really focus on yourself and give yourself that time to heal and kind of like do the inner work in order to create that space for the new person, the person that you know, you never attracted before to come, right? But first you need to focus on yourself, because sometimes women, I don't know, not about all women, but sometimes they feel like once the relationship ended, they need to find another partner right away, you know, like they don't
Right.
give themselves that time. And I think that time is important for the healing process. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's different for every individual. I think that you have a valid point, and a lot of people may require some form of space in between partners. I think it's a personal situation. I think that some women get over the relationship inside of the relationship before the relationship ends. I also think that doing the work and processing your feelings and emotions right after a relationship, before you get into a new relationship, so that you can take time to identify, okay, what was working for me in that relationship? What wasn't working for me in that relationship? How did I allow what wasn't working to stay in the relationship? Like, what did I compromise on? Did I compromise on my boundaries, my standards, my non negotiables? Where did I have hope for change that there was no indication that change was going to come? And so, what am I going to do differently next time so that doesn't persist for me, so that I can have a different experience in my relationship? So, I do believe that doing that type of work is really important, because it up levels not only the woman in the relationship, but who she attracts in the relationship and the quality of relationship that she has. And that's about upgrading and up leveling her standards, her boundaries, her non negotiables, her communication skills, so that she can be a more effective communicator with what her needs are, what her boundaries are. And then it's really important about doing the work to understand, okay, so where did I wobble on my boundaries? Where did I not uphold my non-negotiables? And so those things persisted in the relationship because of something I didn't do. And so that's my responsibility. And once she can start to take ownership of all of that, take responsibility for that, and be honest with herself, then she can start to make some complete different changes for herself for the next relationship. And then that's when she starts, in my opinion, to shift the course of how her relationships go. And then she starts to get on the track of attracting the right match for who she is and what she wants deep down inside. So I think that work is extremely important. I do think some people do it inside the relationship, and some people do it at the end of the relationship before the next one comes in. I'm not here to tell you which way to do it, but I do think both are beneficial. But at the end of the day, I think what's important is that you actually do that work.
Yes, definitely. And you mentioned very important word, responsibility. A lot of times we find ourselves blaming another person for how we feel or how we ended up,
Right.
you know, in the breakup and what happened. And again, we never look into ourselves and how we allowed us to be in that situation, how we created that for ourselves. And you mentioned also boundaries. A lot of women don't set up boundaries or don't speak up or don't, really like talk about how they want to be treated. They don't show the partner the way they want to be treated, so they don't know. And again, like with them not taking the responsibility, not speaking up, this is how, it goes into the wrong direction. So once they start realizing that and start really taking responsibility and talking and communicating with a partner on a consistent basis, so there is no confusion, everything is clear for both people, I think that's where we find ourselves living the life that we want, right?
Yeah, it's important for us to take self-responsibility for how we're being treated. I think that, that's one of the most challenging things to deal with once you get out of a relationship. I do think that when we're in a relationship, we know if we're communicating. Like I knew in my relationship that I was communicating boundaries and then I wasn't upholding my own boundaries. I knew that was me being out of integrity with myself. I did know that. And I did it anyways out of fear of causing a disruption in the relationship or fear of the relationship ending, like out of rejection and abandonment. It was coming from those two wounds. And I do understand that many women 35 and older would probably have a harder time communicating their boundaries. I would even say 40 and older because of the way we've been conditioned. It's just the way the evolution of, women's rights and independence has happened. I think the younger generation is a lot better at it. Um, and I think that when we get out of the relationship, that's one of the toughest things is to see how we allowed ourselves to be treated. Because I think that the realization really sets in, unfortunately, when the relationship is over. When we're in the relationship, we compromise for the sake of the relationship. And we're almost feeling kind of justified or validated in making that compromise. But once that relationship ends, all of that compromising, validating, or whatever justification we gave to ourselves for doing that, it hits like a ton of bricks, and we're just like, like I let that happen, and I knew it was happening, and how did I let that happen? And then there's like this sense of, I don't know if you'd call it shame or guilt, but there's like this beating up on ourselves, this sense of beating up on ourselves because we know all along that we're not standing for ourselves. And I think when the relationship is over, one that hits, we really just want to blame the other person, like make them the jerk, and so then we don't actually have to take any accountability for how we let it happen to us. But I don't feel that that's very helpful because it's not taking ownership and then making a change for the next relationship. If we just push blame on the last person that we were with and we don't make a shift, that's how the next person who comes in is going to be more of the same, because we're actually not shifting something within ourselves to block that person from coming in. And then we repeat the pattern and then we want to blame them again. And that's just a toxic, like you said, way of being in a relationship. It's a toxic communication style. And it actually doesn't even alleviate the pain of feeling dismissed or betrayed or disrespected when our boundaries was crossed. It doesn't take that away from us. The only thing that could ever take that away from us is if we own it and change it and never let it happen again. That's when we get our power back. That's how we get our power back.
Yes. Yes, and it's hard, it's hard to really like take that ownership and to realize that I allowed myself to be in that situation. This is all on me and I have to change. And I know it's hard, but once we do it, we are going to find ourselves being empowered and really make a shift, make a change, and create a healthier relationship in the future. So it's all gonna benefit us, but we have to look in the mirror. We have to make that change internally without blaming anyone, really like take it as a lesson. I think like all of this interaction with people that we encounter during the lifetime, we have to look at it as a lesson to learn for ourselves. So, and that said, there is no need to blame or feel guilty or shameful. Whatever happened, but we need to like really learn from it and adjust, do something different, and and see how we can become a better version of who we can be. And again, it's always like never ending journey. We're always evolving. We're always like taking on those lessons and becoming something that becoming a person that we never knew before that we can be. But I think it's a very important practice for us to reflect on the past and really like apply new changes in our life and see how we can create a new relationship. And again, like being in relationship and having a business, like you mentioned, it's not impossible. It's really like what we do. And nowadays I feel like women are independent and they don't really need somebody to fulfill their needs. They just choose to be with the person to grow together. This is
Right.
how you find yourself in a healthy relationship.
Yes.
But you don't need somebody to really like come to your life to help you in any way. You just have to be that person who is independent in any sense, financially, personally, and it's taking time to come to that understanding. But I think like that's how it's important to really like have some kind either a coach or a mentor who can help you to go through that transition. And I feel like we don't have to do it alone. So if you feel you need somebody to hold space for you and and help you to realize something, it's very beneficial for you to do that. Because again, with you taking time building yourself, building yourself and having that new identity, this is what will make a shift in your life in any way.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to like elaborate more on like if you like work with clients, how long you think you're gonna see the shift in terms of like kind of like having that inner work done. Does it, is it like an average time for everybody, or it's different, or how, if the person would like to start working either with you or with some other mentor or coach, how they're gonna see their change, and so they know like the timeline that it would take for them to heal and really like take in everything that they learned and to become that new version of who they can be.
It's a tough question to answer, to be honest with you. I mean, I like to, like, there is this myth out there that I really do want to debunk, that time heals everything. Actually, I don't think time heals. I think time takes the emotional charge out of it. If time healed everything, then we would all be happy people by the time we're ready to, we get old and ready to, but we're just not. And some of us hold on to grudges for a very long time. You actually have to do the work to heal. And everybody is different depending on the flexibility they have in their minds to be able to let go. Like, that's a challenging one for people, letting go. And it takes some people, like some people are just so ready and they're so done and they just want to find a new way and they want to do what they need to do in order to attract a new type of person. And that person is going to move a little quicker through the process than somebody who's like, I'm still grieving, and I'm not ready to move and I'm still trying to process my feelings, and that's okay too. And so the question is like, what's the timeline? That's a tough question to answer. I would give yourself no less than 6 months. I would be also optimistic to know that every single conversation can transform you. So like, you could talk to me or any coach or any mentor, any therapist for an hour and you can feel relief and you can have new insight for yourself and that could get you on track. And so that's like a micro transformation. But the big transformation, it takes time for you to rewire your neural pathways and to get into the practice of doing something different that you haven't done before. And then it's about the refinement of that so that we can constantly refine who you are as a woman so that you are showing up as a stronger leader in your business and showing up as a stronger leader in your love life so that only the right partner comes in for you. And it's, I've been doing this work for over 20 years. So who I am today is a function of that. But to give you a short answer to your question, I would say give yourself no less than 6 months. Like you got to really take the time. And then it's about implementation, like practicing all the new things that you learn. And so if you hang out with a coach or a mentor or a therapist for 6 months and you get a lot of transformation and then you stop, your way of being, your mind is like an elastic. So the elastic band, you stretch it, but then it goes back.
Yeah.
So the reason you want to get a mentor or a coach is to like help you expand that elastic band and to keep it opening, getting bigger, 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 bigger. Because human beings, we naturally contract. So that would be my answer to that question. It's personal. Don't give yourself less than 6 months, and it can totally happen. Transformation and insight can happen in a conversation, and then it's about practicing and refinement over the long term.
Yes, and I agree. It'll take time, and we need to really practice and apply it for our life. It's not about just taking in information, but what you're gonna do with that, right? That's the
Right,
most important part. How you're gonna practice and apply it, and it has to be consistent. So the more you do it, the repetition is very important, for
yeah,
us to learn a new habit, any type of habit, right? And again, it just then becomes a second nature of who we are. But first, it's uncomfortable, it's new, it's unfamiliar, but it will require time. But most important is your readiness, your willingness to do it, because it will be uncomfortable for you. And not everybody are ready to do it. But once you are, and you no longer want to tolerate where you
right,
are,
right,
what you have, and who ended up with. And again, like if you want to create a new life for yourself, you have to take that responsibility and start doing something about it. And
that's right,
also, I think it's important for us to know it's not just about ourselves. The more we work on who we are, it reflects to interaction with others, not just the romantic partners. When we do
right,
business, also our kids, they watch us, well, no matter
right,
what you say, but they feel your energy, they follow your steps, they just pretty much they copy of who you are, right? And it's important to show them, to be a role model, to show them an example of who they should be.
right,
That's how we can end this generational type of trauma or pattern that's happening. We could be the
right.
one that disrupt it, and that's important, don't you think?
Oh, 100%. I think it's really important for us to know that this type of work is not only going to evolve us as a human, as a woman, for our romantic partners, but it's going to grow us as the human in all areas of our life. Like leadership is leadership. If you grow your leadership for your business, you'll grow your leadership in other areas as well. And I just find sometimes, there's a couple of things that happen with women who have a business and are trying to manage a love life at the same time, whether that be a long-term committed relationship or that's short-term dating, is sometimes the needs of the business can compete with the needs of the relationship. And so again, it's about like finding match. And I also think, a woman could be really strong and have strong standards in her business, strong boundaries in her business, strong non-negotiables, but then something happens when she gets into her relationship and that just isn't there. And I think that mostly is because of the way women have been told they're supposed to show up in relationship. We're not that far away from our grandmothers and great grandmothers and the lives that they experienced in the relationship. And so the programming is still there for us as women. And so it's about now taking both, like the business part of us that has evolved, and evolving the other part of us and making it congruent and integrating it so that we can be a stronger version of ourselves in all areas of life, like you're saying. And then we start attracting more in all areas of life. And it's just like doing little tweaks. Once we grow that, then it's about refining and tweaking it.
Definitely. So glad we have that conversation. And for those who would like to find you online, how can they find you?
Yeah, it's easiest to get me at my email. So S as in Sam, D as in David at sophietalks.com. That's SD at Sophie, SophieTalks.com. Or my Instagram is the Sophie Deslauriers. So TheSophieDes. Lauriers. Thank you so much.
Yes, I'm gonna also include in the show notes as well. And as we close today, what would be the thought for our listeners?
Anything is possible. There is love after heartbreak. There is success after failure. All it takes is believing in yourself, being empowered, taking full responsibility, and going for it.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy your day.
Thank you, you too.
I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, hit the subscribe button and share it with others. Stay tuned.